Hey everyone, it's Niki and Jim, and we are keeping it real. How you doing today, Jim?
I'm great. I'm excited about our topic and our guests. And by the way, we have some of the best guests, and today is no exception. So I'm ready to go.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and begin by first, I guess we should talk about what we're doing though, right, today? Because we've been
Yeah.
going through getting the house ready and, we've been talking about stagers. We had our landscaper out. We're kind of putting it all together and getting ready. And then behind the scenes, we're usually reaching out to our title person to get some information and get that ready. So we're preparing the house to make sure we have no surprises when we pull title. So we have two special guests today. We have Carrie Selby with Fairway, who's going to be talking about what's going on in the market as far as rates are concerned on the mortgage side. And then we have Vickie Lawrence, who's been with Pacific Northwest Title for quite a while. Vickie's going to remind me how many years, but it's been several years. So we will pull her on too. So right now we're going to pull on Carrie, okay? Hey, Carrie, welcome again. How are you?
Thanks. Good to be back as always. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you've got some new great information today, right?
We did. We actually had a really good call with Barry Habib, who is a leader in the industry, and he really has his finger on the pulse, and he's really ahead of what the government is at, what the Fed is at. So I love following him because he has all the latest and greatest information. So if you look at this, there were 683,000 signed contracts in the month of March, and the median home price was $449,800. You can see in the Midwest, we're really high numbers. 161,000 were in our state or in our general area. But the interesting thing is there are tons of homes for sale, or they're saying that are on the market, but such a small percentage of them are actually completed. There's a lot of new construction out there. So the rate or the numbers will say that we have over 7 months worth of supply on the market when really it's just under 2 months. So it's still pretty fierce out there. And I only see things heating up as we go more into the spring months. There was a slight increase in interest rates. Sorry?
I was going to say, I sat on the Barry thing too, and it was so interesting. And he really pulls the markets and all the trends and stuff like that that's going on. And one of the things that stuck out to me was he was saying, the East and the West, or the East Coast is like, they're like really, the houses are flying off the market right now. We've had a little bit of we're still kind of in that slowdown, but I don't think that's going to happen this summer. I think it's going to pick up just like the East Coast is doing. I think it's just kind of a wave, but I think it's coming.
It definitely is. And there were some areas that were really hurting and they're starting to bounce back. So everybody thinks we're going to go into a housing bubble again. And that's just not the case. There were some areas that were affected in home sales. A lot has to do with the current interest rates. And we keep talking about this. They keep fluctuating. They were down for an average of 6.43% last week. We're back up again to 6.55% nationwide average this week. And it's about 1.125% higher than this time last year. But the good news that Barry was telling us is in the very near future, we're going to see those rates drop.
Yeah. And then, you were talking about new construction too. And I know at least like the ones I've been looking at, most of them are way up higher than that amount too. So, yes. So if you have a pre-existing, not a new home, but like, an older home, I forget what they're called exactly, a secondhand home, whatever, right? Whatever they're called. I can't even
existing. Existing
homes, yes. Not new, existing, yes. But, those are a lot higher and stuff like that. So, if you aren't into the new construction and stuff like that, it's a good time to sell.
It is, especially because so many of those new construction homes are cookie cutter homes. And so yours is going to look just like your neighbor's unless you do something special to it. So if you get one of those existing homes that has some character and uniqueness to it, that much better for sure.
That's one of the reasons I bought my house, because I have a secret door in my house and it's like, I think it's cool.
Nice.
Okay. Carrie, do you have anything else on the market?
No, not right now.
Perfect. We're going to go ahead and bring our next guest today, which is Vickie Lawrence. Welcome, Vickie. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. The sun is out. It's just another amazing day in Kitsap County. feeling
know, it's
blessed.
so beautiful.
Amazing how a little sun will kick our step up a little bit, huh?
Yes, yes.
We can't tell everyone how nice it is though, because then everyone will want to move here.
So true.
Well, it's not necessarily a bad gig. It's nice to have amazing people where we're at. So we do connect same individuals. So, you know, it is not a bad place to be for sure.
Yep, exactly. It's beautiful here.
It is.
All right. So Vickie, you're going to talk to us today about title insurance. So, you know, I was just saying right when we opened, I was saying, you know, I mean, one of the first things that brokers do is that we give you a call right away and say, hey, I got a listing and we need to start pulling some information. So can you tell us a little bit about what title insurance or what title is and why you need to have it?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. So one of the things is I always like to start our conversation out. It's like, what is title insurance? We get phone calls all the time. It's like, where do you do title? Are you doing the title? Can I transfer my car title here? And it's like, similar but not. You know, it's one of those things. The one thing I remind people is title insurance is like your Carfax for your home. It's your home fax. And that's the best way to think about what that means. And car insurance, you're paying for insurance that everything today and that may happen in the future. Car and title insurance is everything that's happened today and everything in the past. So you don't know what Mr. and Mrs. Smith did 25 years ago. You don't know who the Johnsons and what they did on the property prior to owning it. So coming into real estate and purchasing a home, you know, it's the biggest investment you're ever going to do in your life. And you don't know what you don't know. So our job as that title company is when an agent gets a new listing, we always encourage them to order a preliminary title. And that preliminary title is your preliminary commitment to find out what's on that property. And we don't just search that property, we also search the general index. That general index will acknowledge things that are attached to that person that can also attach to the land. So some of the things that we search, and we're searching from today and everything back to the 1800s. So back to that and to current, we're searching that chain of title. So what does that mean? We're searching who owns the property. If Niki and Jim are meeting with the Smiths, but the Kawasaki's are on title, there's Houston, we have a problem. So there's some opportunity that allows that agent to have conversation with those clients. Did they do a seller finance where they transferred the home because they had a deceased family member? It allows us opportunities to ask the why. There's always a story if it's been properly recorded or transferred or not. So that's our job, is to search the county record to get some information so we can transfer this property from one person to the next. So some of the things we're going to search is who owns the property. Do we have a correct legal description? As a title company, some of our biggest claims, and any claim for a title company, is going to be easements. Do you have ingress, egress access to your property? And Carrie can vouch for this, is they won't loan on a property that you don't have ingress, egress access to your property. If you can't get to your property, it's not financeable. There are certain circumstances that can be varied, but that's a case-by-case basis. So with the loan comes some basic things that have to be connected to that property. Some of the other things, taxes. Taxes is a lienable item. Assessments, you know, if you're in city limits and they've done all the new sewer lines, you know, that has to come from somewhere. So there's assessments that get attached to a property. So then as an agent, Jim and Niki can tell you, is then that's a negotiation part of that contract. Are those assessments going to carry on with the property? Is the seller required to pay so much in advance for their part of ownership of that assessment? Or is it all going to carry on to the buyer to be responsible for after closing? So again, it's important for them to know because they write their contracts accordingly based upon their findings on that title report. Some of the other things on there is voluntary liens, contracts, mortgages, deeds of trust. Those are all things that buyers coming in are voluntary signing up for. Involuntary judgments and liens, those are real. And we talked about easements, agreements, covenants, and restrictions. And I have agents ask me all the time, well, why is that important? It's like, well, if the agent's meeting with a client and they want to paint their house green, they want a red door, they want to raise pygmy goats, and they want to have their RV in their parking lot, is that subdivision going to allow that? If not, then they're probably not going to show that property. So these are all key elements that are important for the agents to know, but also the seller, if there's something that needs to be cleared up prior to listing it on the market, or prior to getting a buyer to sign a contract, we have some work to do on the back end to try to clear some of those title items. Some of the other things that we search, not just in our own county, but we also search the general index, and we also check, we search Washington Superior State courts and federal courts and government agencies and different entities. And where that comes into play is if there's been any bankruptcies, divorces, if there's been a change of name, lawsuits, judgments, probate, and guardianship. So these are all things that can cloud title, which I'm sure everyone's heard cloud. It's like, what does that mean? It basically puts something on title that has to be cleared in order for it to transfer from one party to the next. So those things have to be handled and satisfied prior to closing, because if not, the lender doesn't want to, they want to be in first lien position. And some of those other things, if they're not cleared, guess what? It takes that priority from that lender, and that's not it. When they're lending money, they want to be in first lien position, rightfully so. They're lending money in order for you to live there.
And we can subordinate, but that's a process too. If there's something, you know, if you are refinancing a home and there already is a lien, it can be subordinated. But like I said, it's a whole process.
It's a process. You don't know what you don't know until you've gotten that far. Then you can have that conversation with that prior lender or that lender to find out if they're willing to do so.
Exactly. And talk about surprise liens. I was doing a refinance for someone and found out that they had a lien on their property, and it was accruing some pretty significant interest. So is that something you could do for people with existing homes? Just do like a title search to make sure there's no liens?
So what typically happens is we'll have agents or lenders will call and say, can you do a date down? If we have an actual open file, we can do one. If we've had a prior or if they're thinking about it, we can't just do an arbitrary title report without actually having an order or a subject to come. But what will happen is we do have consumers and clients will call and say, hey, can you just check and see what is showing of county record right now? Has there been a notice of trustee? Has it gone through foreclosure? Or is there an HOA lien or those type of things? So we can do a quick search, but you also have to remember that just because it's showing doesn't mean it's not showing all the processes of that lien. So if it hasn't been properly conveyed, if it, until we do a search, we're checking the property and the name. So depending on what type of lien it is, it may be under the property or it may be under the name. If it's under the name and a just general search, we won't be able to do that. That's where the title report comes through, and then they check the general index on that. So unfortunately, we're governed by the Office of Insurance Commissioner. So we can't do a lien search without opening a full title report. And again, we have to charge for it. So without an open order, we don't typically do it. You can do that. Let me rephrase that. You can order a title search, but it is kind of a hefty little fee that goes in attached with that. So we can talk about that later. But yes, we do have guys that call, say, hey, can you see if there's like any type of just standard liens that are showing up? And then it'll show when we last insured it or what's of county record. So we could look, but it would not necessarily mean it's everything. Did that answer your question?
Yes, and I'm sure that helps to protect against fraud. People doing fraudulent things with their title. Yeah.
Oh, that's the token word of the day every day. The joys of fraud.
Yes.
Some of the other things just on that first page, we get asked often, it's like, well, who pays for what? Who pays for the title insurance for the buyer or the seller? And how is that based upon? Is it a yearly fee? Is it an annual fee? Traditionally, the seller pays for the homeowner's policy, which basically means is they are paying for a clean bill of goods to transfer that property out of their name into that new purchaser's name. So traditionally, at least in the state of Washington, sellers typically pay for the buyer's policy, which is the homeowner's policy. It's a one-time premium based upon the sales price of the property, and that's included in their settlement fees, and they pay that at closing. Now for the purchaser, if the purchaser coming in and they have a lender they're using carry and they have a loan, then they will pay for that lender's policy. And that lender's policy is for the amounts that they're financing. So however much they're getting their loan, they're paying for that premium for that policy amount, which has been included in their closing costs. It's a one-time fee that honors you and your heirs as long as you own that property. But it also gives you, in the event that if for some reason you feel that you have a loss or your neighbor's building their fence on your property line, or a permit wasn't properly done and you have losses, or if there's any type of fraudulent transaction that goes through, you contact that title company, and your policy will give you some of the protection that you need in order to figure out if that's truly a valid claim. And then once that claim is either acknowledged one way or another, then it goes to the claims department, and then our insurance claims will handle that process moving forward. And then in the event that that happens, we'll defend the title and pay losses up to the policy amount to satisfy any valid claim. So it's that peace of mind policy. You're paying for up front that what may happen in the future, but I'd rather have them go to work than me have to try to get an attorney and work from the back end. So hopefully that makes sense on that avenue. But one of the other things, I have clients ask me all the time, well, why would I call a title officer? Why do I call them? It's like, well, we receive phone calls from real estate attorneys, lenders, agents, builders, consumers. It's like, so what's this title report? I received this 120-page document. What is this, and where do I even start to read? Happens all the time. And I'm going to tell you right now, as a consumer, agent, or lender, if you receive that title report, contact your title company. Say, help me decipher this monstrosity of a document. I know there's value here. I just don't know where to start. So that's what we're there for. We're there to take your orders, explain documents, exceptions. We receive questions. It's like, well, I need to get a road maintenance agreement. My lender says I need it. Where do I go for that? How do I get it? Most your agents and your lenders will help guide you, but a lot of times we do receive those phone calls. We can send them templates. We can send them a blank document. I've been one that has, had a notary stamp roll travel and sat at a judge table and signed 25 neighbors and notarized their signature for a road maintenance agreement. I mean, you don't know what you don't know until you are in a situation where you need that. And again, anytime you have a question regarding title, escrow, reach out to your title company. That's what they're there for. We're here to help out however we can.
Hey, Vickie,
Go ahead.
Vickie, just you have actually on the screen right now some of the things that might be in play, like bankruptcies or divorce. If there's people watching this, they're going through a divorce, or maybe they're going through a divorce and they need to sell the house, what are some ways that they can do that? What needs to happen in the divorce for them to be able to transfer title?
Well, I'm not a real estate attorney, nor will I ever think of giving law or
Right.
practicing law or advice. But traditionally, what we usually experience is people will either come to have an agent list their home once their divorce has been final, because traditionally in the divorce decree, it'll acknowledge who has been granted permission to sell the property, who gets the property, what their percentage of their proceeds will be, work orders, etc. So a lot of times it's either that way. Sometimes we'll have it come through where they're legally separated, but they're amicable. So they still own the property, so they'll have to list that way. And we have some that are in the process of being legally divorced, legally separated, but they still want to sell the property because they just have to because of life circumstances. So in that case, about 90% of the time they are represented by an attorney. So we have the means to be able to utilize them to act on behalf of both parties to make sure that we can proceed forward with the closing properly. Because the one thing to remember is if they're in a pending divorce, there's some circumstances that will be subject to change, and whatever the escrow closer prepares, if they ask for a quitclaim deed to strip away their rights. If it's a pending divorce, your escrow officer technically should not be preparing that quitclaim deed. That's when they would ask for an attorney to prepare it.
I got you.
It goes to court, and if the judge rules it differently, then that quitclaim deed is null and void, and it's not applicable. So there's a lot of moving parts. So we tread lightly, but a lot of the times, most of those, it's been finalized and the divorce decree has been recorded, and then escrow is a neutral third party. As long as we have the proper documentation in the court cases, we can proceed forward with the closing.
Very good.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
I didn't give you guys, but I gave you some scenarios on the how.
Yeah. Excellent.
I know she was asking a question, but then I see she left from her. I think it's technology.
Right?
Oh, there she is. Woo!
I had a little puppy who had to go outside really bad. Sorry about that. No, I was just going to talk about, because we were looking at purchasing a property, and, even just like the boundaries sometimes of a property. I know I called and talked to one of he's so nice too, and they'd love to talk about it. Like they're like so happy when you ask them a question. So I mean, they're good people to call, and they have all kinds of information, especially about boundaries, and they're able to get some of that information pretty quick. So
And if it's one of those things, if it's a property, typically if a client has a question about their boundaries or their easements or where their pegs are, whoever insured their title report or their transfer of that property, you have the rights at any given time to touch base with that title company and ask questions. They're insuring what you have. So I think a lot of times people forget, it's like, well, it's been closed for 10 years. I don't want to bother them. It's like, well, you paid for the policy. If the policy has been paid for. So if you have questions, concerns, we would much rather you call us and say, hey, is there a survey of record? I need to know where my boundary lines are. I don't want to pay for an attorney, but is there anything of record? Is there a survey that you can send? It's like, well, yep, nope, it was included in your title report. I'm happy to send it to you. Oh, I have my title report. Well, great. Let's go ahead and let's pull it out and I'll walk you through it. We have clients that will come in with their title report from like 20 years ago and want to sit down with Mike Meldy, one of our title officers, and sit down, and they will actually go through and sit at the table in the lobby and they will walk through that title report. It's like, it's your rights. It's how many times do people buy real estate? Once or twice in their lifetime, 3 if they're blessed. So you need to be able to know that you have a title company that's there to answer any questions you have. And, we do the best we can to make sure that we're looking at the best interest of you and your family, as long as you own the property.
Excellent.
I love knowing that, Vickie, because there's so many people that just pay for it the one time, and at first they don't really understand why they're paying for this title insurance, but just to know that it's effective for the life of however long they have that loan for. Now, of course, if they refinance and they don't go with you guys, it's going to be a new title company, so they have to keep track of those things. But that's great to know and advise people when I'm talking to them about what their title insurance covers. So I learned a lot today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if there are issues though, did you want to kind of some stuff here, maybe like on how you can fix things? Do you want to a little bit?
So some of the items that we have that, every person, every property has their own opportunities, as I like to say. Not one property is ever the same, nor is one client. So some of the most common items that we work with in clearing are judgments and liens. And traditionally, those are contract judgments through creditors or payoff attorneys and different third-party servicing companies. So when we pull the title report, we show everything that is showing of county record on that property, as well as the clients. And one of the other misconceptions too is people like to think that we're only pulling the title and searching the public record for that seller. But when you have a signed around contract, you have your prelim, and that's just the seller and the property. When you have a purchase and sale agreement, now you'll hear revision. A revision means now we're checking to see if anything else is recorded from that last prelim date to current. Because again, remember, we're going from today and what's happened in the past. And then we're also doing a search on that buyer, because the lender wants to know that they don't have any judgments or liens that are going to move them from that first lien priority again. So they want to make sure that there's nothing being out there for them. So if they've had any judgments or liens, they are just as much as responsible as that seller to make sure that those are taken care of. So when escrow opens a file, they'll send out an intake agreement, and they'll need documentation, name information affidavit, which will give us the information we need on those clients: social security number, date of birth, previous addresses, so we can validate if these judgments and liens are truly the person that's buying that property, which then will need payoff information and account info. So then we can work on clearing these liens and judgments. Or has it been paid and it just hasn't been satisfied? Has it not been paid off and it just hasn't been a satisfaction recorded? So these are all things in jargon on our side, but those are the things that clear those title report clouds off, so then we can transfer a clean bill of goods.
I know a pretty common one is back property taxes.
Yep.
If they don't have their property taxes escrowed. I've seen that quite a bit.
That happens a lot. And typically those are usually a lot of the mortgages that we do today. And Carrie, please feel free to step in at any time. Most of them, their taxes are included in their mortgage payment.
Correct.
So again, it's called their escrow impound account. but a lot of times their mortgage payment, they'll pay for both of those. But there are certain programs that people can get into where they're not required. So that's where it comes through. If they're scheduled there 2 times a year to pay their taxes or one big lump sum and life happens and they don't do it, guess what? Those type of things are going to come up, but they'll have to be cleared prior to closing.
Exactly. And you can actually choose to waive them. There's a fee to do that. And I don't know why you would want to do that. So much easier to split it up over 12 months, or 6 months versus paying it every, in one lump sum. So
yeah, set it and forget it. That's my theory on that one. I don't want to take a little bit often. I'm okay. That works for me.
Exactly.
Okay.
Some of the other ones, and Carrie, feel free to step on this as well, because this affects mortgagees as well as mechanic liens and material liens.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes those will come up and they're like mechanics liens. It's like any work that's been done on a home. Let's just say you replaced your windows, you replaced your septic system or garage doors, and then there's a conflict, and then you don't pay that client for the work rendered. They can file a mechanics lien, and they don't have to notify you. Anybody can put a lien on your property, and you don't have to be notified. As long as you pay for that recording fee, you have the instrument filled out properly, the county will gladly take your money and record that fee and that lien. So, those are some of the things that come through. It's like, well, how can that be done? It's like, you don't have to be notified. Most people know what's happening because they've received some type of notification, but those type of things creep up and we don't know what we don't know. So another reason it's good to always get that information and share with your agents. The one thing I do remind people is if you're working with a client and that is going through a divorce or legal separation or a judgment or lien has been filed against their name and it's out of Kitsap County, please let us know, because those things can come back and haunt you later, because we only pull items for Kitsap County unless we know otherwise. So that can come back and bite people periodically, as if they filed for their divorce in King County, but they still have property in Kitsap and they're selling the property in Kitsap, it won't automatically pull. So unless they've done a second re-record in Kitsap, we wouldn't know. So anytime you have any information you're not sure, is this important? Again, we're a neutral third party. Our fiduciary responsibility is to follow instructions for all parties and written instructions, but there are things that we need to know. So when in doubt, ask the question, send us documents, and our team will always tell you, thanks for the info, good to know, but not necessarily the file, but we'll file it in there in case it comes up or if you need it. So I think the biggest thing is just don't be afraid to ask questions. We are a service industry. We're part of the biggest purchase you're ever going to do in your life, and you need to know what you're paying for. So I think that my biggest takeaway is realize your title insurance is your Carfax for your home. So it's your home fax for your home, knowing what you're coming into. And as long as you and your heirs own your property, that title and company and those claims and losses will be there to support any claims and look out for your best interest in the future.
I love your analogy. Carfax for your home. I love it.
Carfax for your home. I mean, you have to say that even though it doesn't make sense. It's like your home fax. It's like, the Carfax for your home. It's like, we all know it. We've seen the Fox. We know it. So it's it,
Yeah.
Geico insurance. Yeah. So, it's one of those things. It's like when my title officer said that, I'm like, that's good. I'm going to use that. Are you okay? He's like, oh yeah. It sticks, huh? I'm like, yes.
So Vickie, we're getting here close to the top of the hour. And I know you probably only just got a small portion of all the stuff that you need to tell us, because there's so much. We may have you come back in a week or two and have you kind of complete some of this, because I would like to go over this still, the title report. This is what one looks like. Yep. So would you be able to do that for us?
Absolutely. Be happy to.
Okay. And I do want to talk about fraud a little bit, because I know that's rising and stuff too. So maybe those two for topics. And then I don't know what else you had planned to talk about today, but
it was Title 101 today. So I know we only have a limited time, and I could go on and on and on. I know there's nothing really sexy about title insurance, but it is real. And there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of moving parts. So yes, we'd be happy to do both, because fraud is real and it's everywhere, and especially in the world of real estate.
We're dealing with large sums of money, and it's like you said. I mean, it's really important to know and ask this information. And hopefully we can get some questions from our audience too. I mean, people are watching, hopefully they'll throw some questions out and we can throw some of those at you too. So we'll get in touch and do that. Anybody else have anything to add today before we?
No, I just want to thank both Carrie and Vickie. We've, of course, Carrie is on a number of times with us, and Vickie, this is her second time, but just they're so knowledgeable. And I don't know if we said enough. Pacific Northwest Title is who Vickie is with, and the form that we have up right now has the telephone numbers and everything of how to get a hold of her. And then Carrie too, but just you guys have just been outstanding, and we really recommend them as well. So
absolutely.
I definitely endorse Vickie. She's incredible at what she does. She's very accessible and very visible in the community. She's not only a good title representative, but she's an advocate for her community as well. And that's what I love about her and the company that she works for.
Yeah.
And Vickie, how many years have you been doing
this? My friend, back at you, Miss Carrie. You're right there beside me. You see me because you're right there.
We're a lot of the same things.
We are. Great minds think alike, my friend. Thank you.
And Vickie, how many years again do you have? Because I know I said at the top and I didn't get a chance to ask you that.
I've been with Pacific Northwest Title going on 21 years.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, I worked.
You must have started when you were a baby.
Yeah, I was 12.
Yes.
So guys, thank you so much for joining us again today. It's been awesome, and we will definitely have you back, Vickie. And obviously, Carrie, you're back every week, but we'll definitely bring you back in, and we can talk some more about it because we have still so many more questions to ask, and we just got started on it. So
looking forward to it. Thank you, all of you, for your opportunity and what you do for our industry as well. I appreciate you. Thanks for the time.
Thank you for joining us. This is Keeping It Real with Niki and Jim. Make sure you like and subscribe and do send us questions. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next week.